Hey, it's Beth Wright again, and I'm providing you a podcast now on spirituality when we're dealing with patients, all patients, but specifically geriatrics. This is a very important part of our nursing care, and so we want to talk a little bit about that. So, when we're talking about spirituality, we got to think about the holistic being, and holistic viewpoint guides that total care of the individual as a complete being rather than, just pieces of care, the physiological part, the psychological part. So when we look at a person in a holistic way, we consider all parts of it, and spirituality is definitely a big part of this. And, in your notes, it says the practice of body mind medicine is rooted in the origins of healing and the works of Hippocrates, Socrates, and Florence Nightingale. So, uh, all of these are, this goes way, way back. So when we look at the spiritual dimension, with the holistic approach, again, we got that physiological part, the spiritual part, the psychological part, and the sociological part, and all of this goes together. And spirituality definitely has been linked with the well-being, the physical, and the emotional well-being of a patient. Spirituality is considered ongoing and dynamic, and reflects the and expresses the human spirit, and continues to grow with age in our spirituality. And it is the expression of one's spirit reflecting faith in God or a supreme being, and a connectedness with oneself and as well as with others. So when we look at the two things, as far as spirituality and religion, there is a difference between those, and we're going to do a little comparing and contrasting with that. But spirituality is defined as whomever or whatever gives one a transcendent meaning in life. And transcendent means surpassing or going beyond the ordinary limits. And, that can be expressed as religion or relationship with God, but it can also be referred to things like, you know, into nature, energy, forces, beliefs in good of all, beliefs in importance of family and community. And the spirit is basically the essence of a person. And the spiritual part of a person can bring wholeness to the emotional, physical, and intellectual parts of life. So one's spiritual being is important during all phases of a person's health and illness. Now, religion, the word comes from religare, R-E-L-I-G-A-R-E, meaning to bind together. That's what that word means. And religion is a more structured belief system that addresses universal spiritual questions, and it provides a framework for making sense of the meaning of existence, and religious rites and rituals provide a concrete way of expressing that spirituality. Most religions expect general adherence to a particular body of beliefs, like a doctrine regarding one's relationship with God, or whatever the name. Usually it's corporate, structured, and organized. And common characteristics of religion is that there's a basis of authority or a source of power. There's a portion of scripture or sacred word. There's ethical codes defining what's right and wrong. There's a psychology and identity, aspirations or expectations, and some idea about what follows death. So when we compare and contrast spirituality and religion, spirituality is more broader than religion. While not everyone has a religion, spiritual issues in this wider sense arises from all. So Weber, in your assessment book, it talks about spirituality in that chapter, and it talks about that 95% of Americans believe in God, and 50% of Americans pray on a daily basis. One-third of Americans who pray use complementary and alternative medical practices that include religious or spiritual practice. So, I put this here because this shows to me why we need to address spirituality with our clients, because they use, this is something, an inference that we can grab onto with patients when they're in distress, and, be supportive of patients and things. So this is why it's important that we address and assess spiritual needs. Now, 3 spiritual needs: a need for meaning and purpose, a need for love and relatedness, and a need for forgiveness. These are common to all people and with all religious traditions, regardless of what their beliefs are. So again, we all have these kinds of needs. So concepts related to spiritual development. Faith is an interesting thing, as far as it's not tangible. It's not anything we can really touch or, see or anything like that. But it's a complete and unquestioning belief that cannot be demonstrated or proved by logical thought process. And Fowler and King talks about faith as being universal and as being present in both religious and non-religious people. Faith gives meaning and strength, and God, it's something that's guided by parents and others during childhood, and our own internal faith. We grow with that with adulthood, and it can serve as directives for action, and for ill clients it can provide strength and trust for sure. Now, there are certain beliefs related to faith as well, and we have to think about those. So we have agnostics, and they are ones who hold that nothing can be known about the existence of God, and doubts existence of God or supreme being, or believes the existence of God has not been proven. Now you may say, well, that's not anybody with faith, but it is. Agnostics have their own faith, that they believe that there's nothing, about God, and if that's how they want to believe, that is their prerogative. The same with atheists. So the atheist is a person who denies the existence of God. Again, that is their faith. That's what these individuals have decided to believe in, and that is their faith. So you're going to deal with folks like this, and we have to respect that, of course, and be accepting of that. It's still their faith. Even though it's not, the same faith that you or I might not believe in, it is still their faith. That's what they believe in. And so we have to, give them credit for having faith in whatever they believe. So you got a question here. A patient who does not belong to an organized religion does not have spiritual needs that can be addressed by nursing practice. Hopefully you have answered that false, because all patients do, regardless of what their beliefs are or their religion is. Okay, so concepts relating to spiritual development continuing. So love and belonging is one of our Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's a higher level need, of course, when you look at that Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And it is considered, the understanding and accepting of others and giving and receiving love, and a feeling of belonging to something or someone. And, when someone is feeling not loved, having feelings of isolation, lonely, withdrawn, physically or emotionally, um, they can definitely become over demanding and critical, and it can be difficult to work with individuals like that. So, nursing can play such a big part in this, in showing that love and belonging and acceptance of the patient. Our spiritual health and wellness with spiritual development, the universal spiritual needs met for meaning and purpose, love and belonging, and forgiveness. Again, going back to what that means, and then finding spiritual meaning in the experience of illness. And so, personal faith, spiritual contentment, and religious practices can be important there. So, when we're talking about illness, we're talking about suffering. And what does it mean to suffer? What happens in suffering, uh, to spirituality? You'll see patients who deal with suffering positively, saying, it's a part of life and they are going to grow in their spirituality through that suffering. And then you'll also see patients take the opposite road, a negative effect, like asking, why is this happening to me? I've been a Christian all my life. Why is this happening to me? So we have folks, with their spiritual beliefs that help guide to daily living habits, and that can definitely be a support for patients and strength and healing. And it can also be a source of conflict for individuals too. For instance, if they're not able to do what they need to do, they get conflicted, feeling like they're not doing what they're supposed to do to be spiritual. So we have to work with patients through those kinds of conflicts, because that can be, spiritual distress can be as bad as physical distress on a patient. And so we have to be supportive and help individuals, and, find ways, if possible, that, they can meet their spiritual beliefs, meet their spiritual practices, if at all possible. Of course, factors affecting spirituality is going to be developmental considerations. We've got to think about that, with their lifespan. We know that spirituality grows as we grow older. So, thinking about if you're working with adolescents, their spirituality may be on one end of the scale versus working with an adult patient. So we got to think about developmental considerations. Also, what's the family support there? Is the whole family in the same religion? What's, or, at the same level in their spirituality? Many times you see a difference there that can cause conflict. Ethnic, cultural backgrounds definitely is going to play a part in that, because each culture may have their own type of religion or practices or spirituality that they do. And of course, the formal religions as well. And life events. Life events definitely impact their spirituality, especially, when we're talking about the loss of a loved one, those kinds of things, any traumatic event that can happen, the birth of babies, so many life events, marriage, everything like that can certainly affect the spirituality of individuals. So, spiritual assessment, things to consider. Uh, we got to be aware of our own beliefs and biases here. Um, and think about, where are you with your religion and spirituality? Um, and because, it's important that we know ourselves, um, before we're talking with individuals about this. We got to be open-minded. You know, listen actively. Be there with the patient. Be with the patient. So listen actively with that patient. Um, we never ever try to influence others about our own religion or spirituality. Everybody is at their own place with this. And so, you know, that's why it's important that we have a self-awareness about our own spiritual views and beliefs with our spirituality. Um, Provide a conducive environment, you know, or atmosphere, allowing the patient to be open about theirs and, you know, demonstrate an interest and empathetic response to their comments, and of course always respect uh, individuals. Be there, be fully available to hear and understand patients' difficulties and suffering. Is such a priceless moment when we can do that. And you know, it's a hard time to do that. We've got the voceras or things that are talking. I mean, it might be a time to cut that thing off when you're in there with patients and talking about this. And you know, there may be moments when the patient you know, is having difficulty expressing this. They're crying, they're upset, you know, if they're especially conflicted with anything. And so, you know, just being present with the patient and being silent. It's okay to be silent with the patient. Just being there is a tremendous amount of support for the patient. So, when to conduct a spiritual assessment, you know, when we're doing an initial history upon admission to a hospital or nursing home, home health, whatever the setting may be, and when medical decisions need to be made that are influenced by religious beliefs, uh, would be another important time as well. And so what might result, positive outcomes can certainly can be a part of this. The patient's ability to cope improves, their emotional health improves, their adjustment to an illness improves. They are decreasing feelings of hopelessness and despair, loneliness, depression, improvements with the patient and the healthcare workers can happen as well. Patient compliance can also improve, and communication can improve. So, you know, overall course of illness and response to treatment, things can be positive, you know, when we do that spiritual assessment and work with the patient on there. Now, negative outcomes can occur as well when we're doing that assessment. You know, you might have a patient or family that becomes offended uh, asking about this kind of thing because they may feel like, you know, okay, you all come from different spiritual or religious backgrounds. The patient may feel challenged and feel like their religious beliefs aren't being respected. They may become upset because of the sensitivity of the subject. They may become anxious if discussed, especially during a serious illness, thinking about death being the next thing. Spiritual issues come up, and healthcare workers being unprepared to handle it can be a negative effect. And of course, you know, if we can't handle it or we don't address things, then you know, we don't make the appropriate referrals and things like that happen. So those can be negative outcomes that occur. The FICA spiritual assessment tool is a great way to go about this, and the F stands for faith and beliefs, the I stands for importance and influence, the community is the C, and A is address and care. So this kind of goes through that. Asking the patient, does your spirituality, religion provide comfort? And if yes, explain any religious or spiritual beliefs that conflicts with your health care. Do you belong to a supportive church or community or faith? And if yes, how is it supported? Any practice or ritual that helps you express your spirituality and religious beliefs, and if yes, then explain. Any spiritual needs you'd like someone to address, and then, we would definitely have referrals to chaplains, because all healthcare providers or whatever organizations do offer chaplains. And then how can healthcare providers help you with your spiritual needs? And so this is a good assessment of how things can be done to help address that with your patient. This are additional questions that can help with that. What does your illness mean to you? And how do you feel about your life? What gives your life meaning? What gives you peace and joy? And what gives you hope? And what do you live for? Do you have any fears, regrets or hope? And are specific elements of medical care forbidden because of your religious beliefs? All of these questions, I've done this before with patients, and it is amazing what you're going to hear from your patients when you do this kind of thing. Because again, I want to stress to you, spiritual distress can be as bad as physical distress and make a physical condition even worse. And that's why it's so important that, we have some way to assess the patient, and the answers that you're going to get from these questions will, provide you with interventions that you can work with the patient on. Storytelling as spiritual healing. I've seen and heard so many of the storytelling. Every single person has a story. Older adults, many times they'll reorder their lives and make meaning out of experiences that they have happened. And you're going to hear some fascinating stories if you take the time if you take the time to listen. So, anytime a patient says something such as, what is going on with me? I don't understand. We have to take that step and be courageous and take the time to go further with those patients when they're saying that. Because again, when somebody says that to you, they're in distress. Now, it may be spiritual, it may be emotional, may be intellectual, but we got to take that step to help that patient. And that's why nurses are, so rated high in trust, because patients feel like they can talk to us about things like this. And again, you will grow. I know I have as a nurse. You will grow when you hear individual stories. Beautiful, beautiful stories. Some eye-opening stories, and some maybe sometimes disturbing stories, but for the most part, you will definitely grow and learn from your patients as they tell you stories. So nursing diagnoses for spiritual issues. Readiness for enhanced spiritual well-being. You're going to hear that from your patients. That beautiful moments of, I'm ready to accept Jesus as my Savior. We've done many baptisms in the hospital setting. And beautiful, beautiful moments there in my mind and memory that I've experienced with that. Also, spiritual distress. You're going to hear from individuals. They're mad at God. They're distressed big time. They're mad at their church members. And spiritual distress can be broken down into spiritual pain, alienation, anxiety, guilt, anger, loss, and despair. And there's been moments that I've heard people say, well, nobody from the church has come to see me, that kind of thing. So definitely spiritual distress or risk for the spiritual distress and impaired religiosity is where, their impaired ability to exercise their beliefs, or participate in rituals of a particular faith. So that may be, an issue you'll deal with as well. So planning for these individuals or goals, we want to identify the beliefs that meet their needs and derive from those beliefs strengths, hope, and comfort, and develop spiritual practices that nurture the communion with their inner self, God, and the world, and express satisfaction with compatibility of spiritual beliefs in everyday living. Also explore the origin of spiritual beliefs and identify in life that challenges spiritual beliefs. Explore alternatives to those challenges and identify the spiritual supports, and report or demonstrate decreased spiritual distress after interventions. So meeting those spiritual needs, our interventions here, offering compassionate presence through active listening, being present, encouraging reflection and life review, prayer, and caring touch. That top thing says it all. Being present is so important. The caring and touch through touch is very important. And prayer can be very important for an individual. And many nurses feel totally inadequate with meeting the patient's spiritual needs. With active listening and therapeutic communication skills, nurses can do so much to help a patient. And remember that we can always make referrals when we identify a need. So we can always make referrals to to a chaplain. Reminiscing and life review. Okay, folks, I'm so sorry about the doggy. I'm out on the porch and trying to do this, and my dog's out here with me, obviously, so I apologize for that. But anyway, reminiscing and life reviews can be used, different items such as a genogram or a family tree, journaling, scrapbooking. Those are different things that can be done to help with the patient to get them to go back and think, reframe, and clarify and make meaning out of life. And again, that caring touch, sometimes referred to as therapeutic touch, but that can relieve loneliness and provide comfort and show concern for the individual. So just holding their hand, a hug, things like that can be so comforting to a patient, especially when they're distressed. Implementation, again, offering that supportive presence and facilitating the practice of their religion. I mean, think about how we can do that. Providing privacy, offer to contact a spiritual leader in their church or the chaplain. Protecting religious icons from damage or loss. Respect holy days if they in fact have that. Following the healing and dying rituals. And if you're not familiar with what that might be with their particular religion, you can always research that. Also, dietitian, if there's any kind of dietary restrictions that their religion imposes or their culture imposes. Nurturing the spirit, the inner world, that can be done with prayer, reflection, nature walks, music, with the outer world, loving relationships with others, service to others, forgiveness of others, laughter is also a part. Participating in church services, You know, a lot of places do have a place where in their hospitals or hospice agencies, you know, where a person can go and meditate and pray. So things like that can be offered. Praying with a patient or praying for a patient. You know, again, a lot of people feel uncomfortable with this. Um, you know, prayer is considered, you know, a spiritual communion with God, or objects of worship, such as a rosary for Catholics. Um, Prayer can include expressions of love and confessions, forgiveness, thanksgiving, and also asking for help. Um, it's okay to pray with a client if you're comfortable with that. And, you know, you can ask them, um, is there a special prayer that you know, you'd like to recite? I think about my brother was asked to say the prayer for you know, for the a club meeting when he was in high school, and he was supposed to recite the Lord's Prayer, and for some reason he had the meal prayer in his head, and so he started off with that, and individuals, you know, he was kind of made fun of about that. But anyway, there, you know, are certain universal prayers like the Lord's Prayer that you know, most folks know, and so, you know, that might be comforting for a patient. Um, Counseling the patient spiritually and contacting a spiritual counselor, all of these things can be done and for implementation, and of course resolving any kind of conflict between treatment and spirituality, you know, can be important. Um, Speaking about the prayer, we worked with a chaplain in hospice, and he was talking about that, you know, something simple to remember is, you know, if somebody asks you to pray for them or whatever, you can kind of start at the head and say, you know, thank you for uh, this patient's eyes that have seen so many glorious moments and experienced so many things. Thank you for their brain that has provided great intellectual moments in their life. Thank you for their mouth where they provided comforting words. Thank you for their hands where they have done so and so, so and so. So, you know, that's maybe a simple way to provide those prayers, um, you know, for individuals if you're ever asked to. And don't forget, you can always call the hospital chaplain to help you out with this as well. Facilitating the practice of religion. So again, familiarize, you know, with any kind of the patient with any services if they have such things, and of course always respect the patient's privacy and assist to obtain devotional objects and protect them from loss and damage. And, you know, arrange the patient to receive sacraments such as Holy Communion if they desire, and meet those dietary needs, and arrange for a priest, minister, or rabbi to visit if the patient so wishes for that to happen. Providing presence, compassion, kindness, honesty, love, gentleness, and patience is so important. Be present, be attentive, and be quiet. The move from doing to being. And the word compassionate means to suffer with. Compassionate care involves walking with people in the midst of their pain, to be partners rather than experts dictating to them. And so this was a doctor that worked with end-of-life and hospice and palliative care patients, and it's so true. I worked again with a chaplain. I have to tell this about him. He would tell us about, you know, because he was high energy, and so very hyperactive for the most part. And he would tell a story that when he would go to patients' homes, he would have all these things on his mind, you know, if he's got to do this, got to do that, for all of his patients that he was seeing and that kind of thing. And he said, you know, when he got to a person's home, he would get out of the car and literally slam his door as hard as he could. And he did that so that he would stop the thinking about everything else and make himself think of this one patient he is being with. So he was trying to make himself be present and be attentive. And again, you know, silence, there's nothing wrong with silence. Sometimes we get nervous and we think we got to say something. We get Cathy going on, and we don't have to. We can, you know, definitely, you know, just be present and be quiet and listen. So, so important. Formal prayer should not be used with patients as it may alienate them. So, true or false? Hopefully you've said false on that. It is appropriate if the patient desires it. So, you know, we got to first know that the patient desires it, and then it's certainly okay to do. So, evaluating expected outcomes here. Identify some spiritual belief that gives meaning and purpose, and we move towards healthy acceptance of a current situation. Developing mutually caring relationships. You will be amazed at your relationship with a patient when you go down this road with them. Hopefully helping the patient reconcile any kind of interpersonal differences, and satisfaction with a relationship with God, and peacefulness. That's such a big part, especially when someone has been in distress. Expressing the ability to forgive others and live in the present can be such a healing force that is just beautiful to see, and demonstrating interior state of joy and freedom from anxiety and guilt. Indications that spiritual stress is lessened is the acceptance of spiritual support, and that decrease in restlessness, insomnia, crying, decrease in statements of worthlessness and hopelessness, and a satisfaction with their beliefs. Okay, I hope this has been beneficial for you, and I know you probably have noticed the background on your PowerPoint here is made to help you think of the spiritual part, you know, that there's a light there. So I hope you've enjoyed this podcast.